Point about the money, I do think that's a big aspect of it, and they probably look at it as, this guy's making more money than me, but I feel like I'm better than him. Why the hell is he making that amount of money? Hello everybody, welcome to Awesome Rusty Buckets. Subscribe to the channel if you're over on YouTube and give us a like. We're trying to hit 200k subs by the end of the year, and check us out over on Spotify if you want to enjoy this as an audio only experience. We're back with the NBA news. Sorry that the schedule's different than we said in the last time we were doing this. We realized that we can't really have enough frequency with the news, so given that there's not much happening this offseason, but we do have a good amount of stuff to react to, including a lot of discourse about Rudy Gobert lately, mainly this clip from Derrick Lively.
Who's on the TV screens? Who's on the commercials? That player is definitely going to be on the
Perfect
floor.
example. They played the Minnesota Timberwolves. There is zero reason Rudy Gobert should have been on that court.
Zero.
But you are paying him about $40, $50 million. You better get your ass out there and figure it out.
And he didn't.
And he didn't.
He did not.
Yeah, I don't know what the fuck he's talking about. So, obviously Derrick Lively played in a series against the guy, and that's informing this opinion. Shouldn't be on the floor at all, I'm really not sure about that. And what I don't get is that the Timberwolves were definitely better defensively with Rudy on the floor. Obviously, there was that one play where Luka hit him with the step back three and yelled at him and all that. That was really huge, probably his most iconic play of that playoff run. However, I don't understand this argument. Rudy Gobert definitely had bad moments in that series, and I think that's commonly a thing with Rudy Gobert, is there is a selective bias, this like cherry picking because people don't like him, because they think he's overrated, where they will find moments where he gets cooked by a guard as if that's not fairly understandable, and act like that entirely invalidates every defensive player of the year season that the guy had. It is a matter of fact that the Mavericks were worse offensively when Rudy Gobert was on the floor. And what I especially don't get is the big hole in Minnesota's defense that, in my opinion, was the most exploitable aspect of it. I don't know so much for the Mavs series because it's a little fuzzy to me now. At large, it was Karl-Anthony Towns. Karl-Anthony Towns is the hole in that defense. Yes, Rudy Gobert switched on Luka isn't the most ideal thing in the world, but how many centers in the NBA is having them switched onto Luka an ideal situation? Two that I could pick, it'd be Bam Adebayo and Anthony Davis. And if you think Bam Adebayo and Anthony Davis are better defensive players than Rudy Gobert, I have no quarrel with that. But as for the center position at large, no one would handle that well. I think maybe Derrick Lively, ironically, would handle it a little bit better. He moves a little bit better on his feet. But the reality is, his weaknesses defensively, yeah, they can look a little rough, but when you look at the entirety of what the guy is bringing to the table, there's no question he's more of a positive defensive player than not. This clip isn't the only thing, but there has been a lot of discussion about Rudy Gobert recently, which I think is just something that we always do in the offseason. It feels like I've done a Rudy Gobert off-season discourse video every damn offseason. All the talking points ultimately end up being the same, and my friend Three Cone said how you talk about Rudy Gobert is essentially a litmus test for how you understand the game of basketball. Couldn't agree more. It's visual. The eye test tells you the guy is a phenomenal defender. The stats tell you the guy is a phenomenal defender. It's not as though he isn't racking up a lot of blocks if you really care about the counting stats aspect of it. Rudy Gobert is routinely considered one of the most overrated NBA players to a degree where I don't even think it makes sense. Because if everybody calls the guy overrated, is he really overrated? There was a survey, I don't remember where from, but it was a survey of anonymous NBA players who all said Rudy Gobert was voted as the most overrated player in the league. Point about the money, I do think that's a big aspect of it, especially for the players. How we, as NBA fans, or anybody who's not the players really, would overrate a player is a little bit different from how an NBA player might rate NBA players, and they probably look at it as, this guy's making more money than me, but I feel like I'm better than him. Why the hell is he making that amount of money? Is Rudy Gobert worth $50 million a year? He's definitely not. However, I don't really understand this being held against him because the dude signed a contract that anybody else would. It was more the desperation of the Utah Jazz to keep anything resembling franchise level talent. but I don't understand why. I get NBA players being a little jealous of it, but I don't know. I feel like it's a little ugly to be so jealous of that. Derrick Lively, you know, if you want to go like a valuation thing, Derrick Lively on a rookie contract or Rudy Gobert, $50 million a year, I do think Derrick Lively proves to be more valuable in that context. Rudy Gobert is still one of the best centers in the NBA. While I understand a lot of NBA players don't think the guy is as good as he's cracked up to be, they still don't go to the fucking basket when he's on the floor. Across the board, teams' frequency at the rim goes down when Rudy Gobert is on the floor. So you guys think he's overrated, but you're still scared to challenge him at the basket. That I don't understand that contradiction. So yeah, I do not vibe with the way that people talk about Rudy Gobert. I understand not liking him. Okay, he's French. First of all, that's an L. I'm French too. Him being overpaid, I hate criticizing players for being overpaid. Derrick Lively, if you were offered a $50 million a year contract, are you saying no to that? You can hold a guy to a higher standard because of how much they're paid, but if they're paid beyond a standard that they can meet, to me, that is on the franchise that gave that player that contract, not the player themselves. The Rudy Gobert hate, I understand where it comes from, but like the argument that he's not an effective defensive player is fucking ludicrous. Like, it could not be more unanimously the truth that teams are not as good when Rudy Gobert is on the floor. Not as good offensively against him, that is. I don't understand why Derrick Lively's doing this. I don't know if that's a good look necessarily. A little bit arrogant for sure. Here are some reactions to the clip. Does Derrick Lively realize he only scored 2 points in 3 out of the 5 finals games? See, that's not really relevant, but you know, fine. I don't think that discounts the argument as a whole. He was there on the floor. The Wolves were +8 with Rudy Gobert on the floor in that series, the best plus-minus on the team. Ant was a -10, and yes, I pointed out Cat a second ago. Cat was -16. In any event, it's fascinating to me how players and coaches league-wide will freely talk this kind of shit about Rudy and only Rudy. Couldn't agree more on that front. I wasn't actually looking at the stats, I just was going off of what I saw in the series. Stats back me up. Rudy Gobert, best plus-minus in the series, and as I mentioned, Cat was a far bigger liability for them. -16. It's just that one play with Luka. You know, if you're a Rudy Gobert hater, you were creaming your pants when Luka hit that step back over him. But the reality is, players are not a single possession, especially if they're making $50 million fucking dollars to be on the floor for a very long time. You have to look at the whole product. I understand it, but I don't. I don't get why it seems so unanimous, why this is so across the board. It's just shitty. Like, I don't know what he did to deserve it at this point. Obviously, 2020, he did some funky stuff and has made a weird comment here or there. But otherwise, I really don't get why people hate on the guy so much. Next up on our stories, I meant to promote the deep dive that just came out. Yes, the deep dive is out. It is about the rise and fall of super teams, why I believe the NBA is trying to intentionally phase out super teams. Go check that out if you have not yet. With that said, the next thing to talk about is NBA 2K coming out. The reason to talk about it is some of the rating stuff, but also I want to quickly promote that I am going to be bringing back my league stuff over on my 2K channel, and I know what you're thinking. No fucking way you're gonna finish that. Maybe I won't, but we're going to try and change the format so that happens. I'm actually going to be live streaming them and having someone edit them after the fact. So that will be available if you like my old My League content. And if you want to hop on a stream, that would be great. I don't have a link yet. I do have a link to the channel, so that will be there. But we might go on Twitch. I don't know. Just a loose idea at the moment, but should be doing that in the next couple of days. Let's look at the ratings from a good friend I mentioned earlier, 3Cone Connor. Top 3 ratings are Nikola Jokic, Luka Doncic, and Giannis, all being 97 overalls. I agree with that. I think that's fair. SGA and Joel Embiid, the next tier, at 96. LeBron James, 95 at 6 is interesting to me. I don't know if I would have gone that way, but with these next 2 guys, they're also 95, so fair enough. I would personally rank Stephen Curry over LeBron. I've kind of been going back and forth about the Jason Tatum thing. I actually think it was Isaac on the Deep 3 made a good point. about it that was like, what exactly is Jason Tatum actually better than LeBron at? And the answer is defense, but it's not by a gigantic margin by any means. The three-point shooting seems like it would be in Jason Tatum's favor, but he seems to consistently be a little bit disappointing as an outside shooting threat. But anyways, LeBron, Steph, and Tatum all get 95s, KD a 94, and Anthony Davis a 94. I would have liked to see the players beyond this, but I don't have much of a problem with this list if we're looking at it as 2K's functionally their top 10 NBA players. This isn't a bad top 10 NBA players list, so fair enough. Anthony Davis is interesting. I don't know if I think there's a few players that other people would rank over Anthony Davis. I also personally, I say this all the time, I think Devin Booker's a little bit, just a smidge better than Kevin Durant, and I'm curious what his overall is. These aren't too bad. I think they're fine. The big thing, though, is unfortunately, a lot of players are missing from the game. Another friend of the show, Double D Worth over on YouTube, Denver as I know him. John Wall is not on the all-time Wizards. Serge Ibaka not on the 2012 Thunder. Andre Iguodala on the 16 or 17 Warriors, or Blake Griffin on the 2014 Clippers. On some of these teams, it's still functional. Like the 2017 Warriors, you can still play with the 2017 Warriors without Andre Iguodala. Serge Ibaka sucks not to have on the Thunder, but you can still be like, look, Russ and KD is Russ and KD. The all-time Wizards, who's playing with the all-time Wizards anyways? But Blake Griffin not on the 2014 Clippers. What the fuck is the point of playing with the Lob City Clippers if they don't have Blake Griffin? There isn't one. So that sucks, and that's one of my favorite 2K teams. So this happens because after these players retire, it's no longer a contractual thing with the NBA, and then they have to approach these players individually. I don't know if it's a matter of money or whatever, but it does suck that these guys are not here, and I have to imagine none of them were asking for anything that unreasonable. But yeah, that is definitely a huge L. Stephen Curry hopes for more experiences with LeBron James as, quote, a teammate or not. Obviously, they ended up playing a lot together during the Olympics, and that was a big talking point, was do we think that LeBron and Steph teaming up someday is actually potentially on the table? Now, Steph just signed a 1-year extension, which will keep him there through the 2027 season. I almost said 1927. And that's worth $62.6 million per year. Does make sense, you know, same type of money that he's already getting anyways, just an extra year on top of it. But the fact that he only did a 1-year extension, maybe he was only able to, but I don't believe that was the case. If he could have signed for a longer deal and didn't, that is interesting to me. We did a video not too long ago about the prospect of Stephen Curry going somewhere else. Whether or not in this hypothetical which player is going where is a little bit up for debate. But either way, it's something that I would find interesting. I don't know how it would recontextualize their past rivalry, but I also don't think it would ruin it by any stretch. And if anything, it would make it really interesting seeing that team given that context. Also, if the NBA wants to break some fucking viewer records, getting LeBron and Steph on the same team, and especially getting LeBron and Steph on the same team in the NBA Finals, potentially, if I was Adam Silver, I'd be rigging that shit up right now. Whether or not that happens, it probably ends up being NBA fantasy, fucking, what do you call that, fan fiction. We like to speculate about this shit, but regardless, I would like to see LeBron and Steph on the same team. I do think it's interesting that he said teammates or not. He's clearly seeing all this discussion about him potentially being a teammate with LeBron. But yeah, that's all I have to say about that. The Celtics sign Lonnie Walker to a 10-day contract. That's interesting because I feel like Lonnie Walker is a little bit too good for that amount for just to be a 10-day contract. Like, I feel like he should have a position in the NBA. He played fine enough in Brooklyn last year. Didn't play a lot of minutes, not a great 2-point percentage. Not that he's ever been that great about it in his career, but 38% from 3 on especially for 17 minutes a game, that's really high volume. If you take that over to 30 per 36, it's almost 10 3-pointers a night. Yeah, 38%, that type of shooting off of the bench. Lonnie Walker is more than just a shooter as well. He can do a little bit on the inside. Not much of a playmaker, but he can be a ball handler here or there. So yeah, if there is any player that the Celtics could actually conceivably get in their playoff rotation off of a 10-day contract, this is it. It's honestly kind of scary to me. I don't know if he's actually going to end up being brought back, but I'm fairly confident that he should be. I don't know who else is on that roster who's actually going to be better than Lonnie Walker. The Indiana Pacers signed TJ McConnell to a contract extension. Nothing all too special there. The total value of the agreement is $45 million a year, partially guaranteed at $5 million per season, and the fourth season contains a team option. So less than $30 million of it is guaranteed. That's interesting. A little bit of a shorter episode here because there's not that much to talk about, hence why we are getting these to be just a one-time a week thing. Here's our schedule right here that we're going to be going with for future reference for those of you that care. We're going to be doing a Monday news show recapping the most previous week over the weekend. Hot Take Tuesdays, Shoot Around Podcast, that's going to be today. It'll be out by the time that you are watching this. We ranked shooting guards. And then Hot Takes on Friday as well. Hot Takes Tuesdays on Friday. I know it's kind of dumb and silly, but we kind of like that it's dumb and silly. We will do news if there is some new stuff, but there probably won't be. And we might get a weekend video here every once in a while. But we are trying to ramp things up over here at Rusty Buckets Co., so that we can get some good momentum going into the season. We're going to be covering the 2024-2025 season better and more extensively than I have ever done it before. We got an office space. We're taking this a little bit more seriously. About to be 25, so I figured maybe I should take my job serious for once. Thanks for watching. Shout out to Nick for editing this video, but that is it. Goodbye.